Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show on intellectualradio.com, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And those of you who are watching us by way of YouTube, I'd like to ask for you to please like, subscribe, and share this live video. There is no cost to registering to becoming a subscribed member on YouTube. We just want to make sure that we are reaching people who want to get information and people who want to engage in facts and who want to engage in the truth. Well, coming up on tonight's program, joining me is going to be in a few minutes, the former Cook County Board President, Todd Stroger, is going to be joining me for the program. We have a lot on the docket that we're going to be talking about tonight. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the killing of Renee Good and the recent killing of a VA nurse by the name of Alex Petrie, and we're going to be talking about that. And we've got some clips for you, on that, as well as we're going to be talking about the breaking news that just heard just before we went live, is that the Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino is going to be leaving Minnesota, and coming to replace him is going to be Tom Homan. Well, we're going to be talking about that also on the program a little bit later on. We're going to be talking about wrongful convictions. Did you know that Chicago and Cook County has the largest number of wrongful convictions in this municipality that involves the Chicago police and the Cook County state's attorney, 574. That is more than any other state in the union. The closest state is that of Texas, where Texas has 434. We have 574 and counting. And of course, I've been talking with you about the latest case that we, our organization 10 by 10 to Win, which is a political action committee dealing with social political issues, are supporting Kevin Jackson, who was charged of a murder in 2001 and served nearly 24 years for a murder that he had nothing to do with, and the appellate court ordered him released before they had even issued their written opinion. That's never happened in the history of the state of Illinois. And now he is trying to get his certificate of innocence. Now get this. He's trying to get his certificate of innocence. You're not going to believe what has to happen in order for him to get his certificate of innocence. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the program. And so I want you to make sure that you stay with us for that conversation. And a story that we're going to talk about is in Texas. Speaking of Texas, there was a man who was convicted of a murder there in Texas, and 70 years later, his son, who was then 2 years old, got the exoneration of his
Texas
father.
man has just been exonerated more than 70 years after he was executed for a crime he did not commit. Officials in Dallas now acknowledge that Tommy Lee Walker was wrongly convicted at age 19 for the murder of a white woman in Dallas. They say one of the officers involved in the case was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Police also suppressed evidence. Walker's son, just 2 years old when his father was executed, fought for decades to prove his father's innocence and had this message in court.
Love everybody. In spite of what happened to my father, I still love people.
The decision brought many in the courtroom to tears, including the district attorney.
We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on, along with the dubious honor, unfortunately, that the city of Chicago and Cook County has the highest number of wrongful convictions. As I said to you, we are dealing with one now that we are supporting. His name is Kevin Jackson. And I'm going to share some information with you about that a little bit later on. That is rather astonishing, that you will be astonished by. But joining me now is my guest, who is going to be my guest co-host for this program, the former Cook County Board President and former Alderman of the 6th Ward, Todd Stroger. 8th Ward. 8th Ward.
We're pretty similar, to be honest with you, Mark. We look pretty much alike.
All right. Yeah. All right. How you doing?
Excuse me for being late. I was finishing my my longtime job of picking up my wife.
Oh, listen, that's the first priority. That's the first priority, and you're right on time. As I was just getting through the litany of the introduction as to what we're going to be talking about, and of course, at the top of that list that we're going to be talking about is that of what's happening in Minnesota. Just moments ago, maybe 30 minutes ago, it was announced coming from the White House that the Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino is going to be leaving Minnesota, and coming to replace him is going to be Tom Homan, who is the so-called immigration czar. Now, I'm not sure that, well, I guess I am sure of that. This is, I guess he's supposed to be bringing some sort of calm to the situation, but I see that as bringing some escalation to the situation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't see how he would be any different. Maybe he's not as talkative as the current person, but they're all running from the same playbook. So I don't see how this is going to help anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this current support staff, of whatever you want to call it, cabinet, in this second of his administration is far different from that of the first, because we had people who had some sense of loyalty to the Constitution and to the rule of law, and could hold the president back. That does not exist in this current administration, certainly by his own intention. So yes. I don't see there. It's a unilateral change. If anything, I think it's going to be an escalation of what has happening in Minnesota.
Yes, I totally agree with you that he learned from the first term that he didn't like people who did what the Constitution said you're supposed to do. So he decided that this time he was just going to get people who were loyal to him. They call it a personality cult. Everyone has to be loyal to the leader, and that's pretty much makes you a dictator.
By all accounts, that's what we have. I contest that ever since he went in his first term, when he went to visit South Korea and their president or prime minister there, Kim Jong-un, when he came back, he was obsessed with being an authoritarian.
It's amazing that he would literally say that he liked the way he could tell people what to do and they would do it.
Yeah. He said, he tells his people what to do and they stand up straight. He says, I want to get my people to doing that. So he's been obsessed with that ever since he made that trip over to South Korea, and he's essentially effectively doing that in this term. Just before, I was talking with Dorothy Tucker and a couple of other people the other day, and just before this latest killing of Alex Preddy, the Veterans Administration nurse, she was saying that Renee Good was the George Floyd for the white community.
Mm-hmm.
And within 24 hours, this happens to Alex Preddy, which I think that just elevates that to a whole nother level for the white community. Now, these were two American citizens, not immigrants. They were
Right.
American citizens. And here they were expressing and using their First Amendment rights, and they were brutally murdered by what is supposed to be law enforcement. Now, I've seen both the videos over and over. I'm not even going to play them because I just I don't think it's necessary that we have to, give some glorification to that. I think that people have seen those videos, and it is clear, unless you cannot see or don't want to see or don't care, that neither of these people were a threat to anybody.
The threat was, we disagree with what you're doing, and we're making a noise about it, and that put a target on their back. And if you look at Minnesota historically, Minnesota has always had sort of socialist leaning. Hubert Humphrey. They've always had social programs to help people. This makes them the target of the administration. I don't think any sane people, because I've had people on the on my internet connections who would say, well, if they just would cooperate, they wouldn't get shot. That doesn't sound like the America that I think that we want to live in. Is if you decide that you want to say, hey, what you're doing is wrong, they get to shoot you.
Yeah, there are so many contradictions here that it is very evident that this is about what the president, what Stephen Miller and that group, the Project 2025 authors,
yes.
What they are interested in doing, that this is their script and what they want to do. So there's no rule except for what they want to rule on. And if anybody violates that, you're violating the law. Now,
I'm glad you mentioned Project 2025, because Project 2025 is really about control. It's about the president being able to control everything from the top to the bottom, with no one having a check or balance on him. So they slowly but surely been trying to implement that with I guess I will say, with Congress standing on the sidelines and the Supreme Court saying, okay, that's okay.
Well, the Supreme Court is absolutely the enabler. The Supreme Court is the arm that I believe that is trying to facilitate Project 2025 to take us back to as close to, maybe not there, but take us back to as close to slavery as possible. Maybe Jim Crow.
Right.
Maybe they're not trying to get us back to slavery, but certainly there is every sign that they want to get us back to Jim Crow. See, this whole attack on illegals or illegal aliens, as they have been dictated to say, is a precursor, in my view, that if they can do whatever it is that they want to do, violate the Constitution, violate migrants' constitutional rights, because any person that is on the soils of the United States is protected by the Constitution, because it does not say citizen, it says person.
Correct.
So, they, in my view, they believe that if they can get away with this, and there not be any consequences, the next group is the group that they have really been targeting, is that of Black folks. Well, they're doing that anyway, firing more than 300,000 people from the federal government.
Well, Mark, you know where those people are supposed to go, right? Trump said it once. He was like, the immigrants are taking all the Black people's jobs. So, like you're saying, those people can go straight out in the fields and they can pick fruit and mow lawns and all that kind of stuff that I guess we were supposed to be born to do.
Exactly. Which is somewhat disturbing to me to see so many Black folks who claim to be followers of Christ. And I typically don't do this, but I'm going to go there tonight because there are many people who like to use that they are a child of God and a follower of Christ, except for when it comes to dealing with undocumented people. I mean, if you are for borders and you are for treating people like those others or aliens, you couldn't possibly be talking about following the Christ that I know, and certainly following the scripture that I says. Now, they will say, well, what about when the scripture tells us that we have to be subject to the governing of the authorities? Well, the Bible does tell us that we have to be subject to the governing of the authorities, except for when that governing body is asking for us to do something that is antithetical to God. It is very clear in scripture that it tells us that we should always seek justice. And so these people who, I'm talking about Black folks,
yes.
I know about, but I'm talking about Black folks who try to justify their position in saying, well, they want all of the immigrants gone, or they want especially those who are the criminals. Well, all of the studies that I have read show that less than half of the migrants here commit crimes to that of people who are naturally born citizens of this country. So gaslighting these poor people who are, just want to work, provide for themselves, and to send some support back home to their families. And they contribute a great deal to our economies. Now, I've heard Black folks say, well, they're taking our jobs. And I ask people, show me where some migrants are taking our jobs. Show me. Show me where they're taking jobs. I know that as a person who has a small business as myself, I have a hard time finding Black people to fill the positions. I'm in the real estate business, and I have a hard time trying to find. I mean, I have a few people who have been working with me for years. A great plumber, a great roofer that is Black. But the truth of the matter is, it's been difficult for me, and I've been in real estate for 40 years, in Chicago for more than 30, to find people who actually want to work and want to show up to work. Now, in the field, that's not to say that is indicative of Black folks everywhere, because I believe that the majority of Black folks get up every day, take care of their children, send their children off to school, go off to work hard, come back home, and doing what they're supposed to do. The majority of Black folks get up every single day, going out, working hard to be productive in society. But for some who think that they are standing on some holy ground with the basis of no truth to say that, these people are taking our jobs and I want them gone. Well, President Obama deported more than 3 million people. Bill Clinton deported more than 1 million. So every president has deported people. They just didn't send cameras around to document every person that's being deported. So,
and they also didn't just stop people because of the way they look and because they had an accent. Which, what's the next thing? They're going to stop us because we're dark? I don't get that.
Well, the Supreme Court has basically given them license. Now, I've said that the Supreme Court, and it's called the Kavanaugh stop. They call it the Kavanaugh stop because he was the authoring justice on saying that they could actually stop people based on how they look. So they call this the Kavanaugh stop. That really means that if they can stop Somalians because of how they look, they can stop Black folks because of how they look, because you look, right? So now if this was really about immigration, as it is not, there are more than 500,000 European white undocumented people in the country. There's not a single instance of ICE picking up one, not one recorded instance of ICE picking up one undocumented European white person in this country. Now, that is not to say that I am anti-white immigrants or anti any other, because I am not a person who believes that we need to have an iron fence of a border. Do we need to have a process for people to come into the country? Yes. But the Republicans don't want to fix immigration. They've never want to fix immigration. Immigration is their gaslight ticket because they don't have any other substance. And I ask Black folks who think that somehow supporting red or Republicans is the best thing. I ask Black folks, and I've been asking it now going on 15 years, please provide me with not two, but one piece of legislation on a federal level or either on a local level where Republicans have proposed and gotten passed any piece of legislation that is going to be helpful to the average American and certainly on the average Black person. Just one. Now, I asked that question 16 years ago, and I'm still asking the question and waiting for that piece of.
What did they tell you? The 14th Amendment? Is that the one? The one that ended slavery?
Right. But see, that was a different group of Republicans.
It was. It definitely was.
That was a different group of Republicans that would be Democrats today.
That's right.
So somehow they're trying to conflate what we are seeing here in the last 40 years of Republicans, which were Republicans back during the Lincoln days. But even going back to the civil rights movement, they would say, well, the Republicans supported civil rights. They may have supported civil rights, but they didn't propose civil rights. Civil rights and the Voting Rights Act was not proposed by Republicans.
And if you look at the voting itself, what you see is the South all voted against it. They were Democrats then, but they're not now.
Right, exactly, and that's where they made the big switch to what we see as the current modern day Republicans.
Yes.
So, all right. So speaking of this, going back.
Hey, Mark. One thing, real quick. And as you were talking about the Bible, I'm Catholic, and they made us study that a lot. The story of the Good Samaritan is about the Samaritans were not well thought of. The rest of the area did not like the Samaritans. So
Right.
the story is to point out this guy who's supposed to come from a terrible place help someone he doesn't know. That seems to get lost on people. They just don't get that.
Help someone that he was
strangers.
raised and taught to hate.
Yes.
Help someone who he was raised and taught to hate. You know, on this Damascus road, where these were two people who were taught not to like each other. But you're right, that gets passed over and not thought of much at all. But of course, this whole Christian nationalism, that's what they, you know, and what that is a bastardization of the scriptures, is what that is. But
well, you know, the white people think that God gave them this country, and the rest of us are just kind of like, you know, we're just here to help them.
Right. Well, you know, they believe that somehow they have conflated, you know, the Cain and Abel story to suggest that, you know, slavery was something that was God sent.
Right. That's why the Mormons didn't allow us, because we had the mark of Cain, which is basically our skin color.
Right. Exactly. So, so here we are now with Alex Predator, the guy who, I want to play this clip that I saw the press conference of Greg Bovino, who would stand up. I mean, this looks like it's straight out of Russia somewhere, of what we are witnessing in this government. This is Greg Bovino lying about, in his explanation of why Alex.
During this operation, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The agents attempted to disarm the individual, but he violently resisted.
Now, it is obvious that these people go into a briefing room and they are given a script as to how they are supposed to speak.
Yes.
And what they are supposed to say. This is straight out of the Kremlin, straight out of Russia, as to how these people are operating. Now, when you look at the video, I'm not sure if you've seen the video. I've seen it several times. Alex Preddy had on a dark brown 3/4 down jacket, zipped up. Underneath, he had a sweater that covered his concealed carry. Now, look, I am a person who detests guns.
I'm with you.
I don't like guns. I wish that nobody in the country had to have a gun. This man was a lawful, licensed, concealed carry with no record of any sort other than a record of helping people. This is the Alex Preddy that they call a would-be.
Today we remember that freedom is not free. You have to work at it, nurture it, protect it, and even sacrifice for it. May we never forget and always remember our brothers and sisters who have served so that we may enjoy the gift of freedom. So in this moment, we remember and give thanks for their dedication and selfless service to our nation in the cause of our freedom. In this solemn hour, we render our honor and our gratitude.
That's the man that they said was a would-be assassin that Kristi Noem and Greg Bavino tried to taint.
Mark, they had it's just like you're saying, they had their script written. The president hadn't even seen anything, and he started talking about how this guy was bad. But it's a shame. Even the most ardent Trump supporter I know said, "I don't know why they're lying. You can see a mile away that he's on the ground. Somebody pulls his gun out, and then somebody shoots him. It's murder." And how does 6 people who are subduing the guy and they've already sprayed him with something, pepper spray, how is he a threat where they need to shoot him? It's ridiculous. And as I said to somebody, we're already in a civil war. It just depends on how high the escalation will be.
Well, Donald Trump was reared, trained by his father and his lawyer. I forget his lawyer's name. Roy Cohn. That told them that you never, ever, ever admit wrong. You never do it. Right. And he has held to that. So there are people who are saying, well, Kristi Noem he's going to have to sacrifice her or get her to resign. I don't believe that that's going to happen, because if he does that, that's an admission or some sort of admission that he was wrong by Kristi Noem. I don't know, maybe he gets her to decide that she's going to move along on her own or something like that. But I don't believe that Donald Trump would ever do anything like that by anybody in his cabinet, because that would be an admission of some sort of fault or wrong by him.
No, I agree. He's such a narcissist. The only way I could see something like that happening is if the House decided that they were going to try to impeach somebody, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe after the midterms, but not going to happen now.
Yeah, I don't even think that it's going to happen after the midterms, because the only thing that's going to happen is that the House is going to flip to the Democrats. We don't know about what that margin is going to look like. But even if the Democrats were to be successful and to gain control of the Senate, they still need 2/3 of the Senate to convict somebody who has been impeached and to have them removed from office. So I don't, the math just doesn't demonstrate that. And I also think that the Democrats have to be very careful. I think that the Democrats have to be very careful not to go to these extremes that people are resisting now, because I don't think that people want to elect the Democrats or put Democrats in control so that they could go and do the same extreme things that they see happening now. What I would hope is that when the Democrats do get control, certainly of the House, is that the Democrats would actually work on substantive policies that will work to improve the lives of everyday American citizens. Now, the Republicans are going to resist it, but I would say that what the Democrats should do then is what they have been doing now, is going into these Republican districts and saying, look, we're passing policies, we're proposing policies that is going to improve the quality of life for people in your district. Your representatives are holding or resisting or voting against them. That's what Harold Washington did when he came into office, is that he went to the districts or to the wards of the at the time, the 29, the 29, and said, hey, to their constituents, we're trying to pass policies that's going to be helpful to your community, to fix your roads and improve your infrastructure
Mark, you're absolutely correct about that. So 10 years after the mayor died, NPR, National Public Radio, went over to the north side. They went to a bar. They interviewed a white patron, and the guy said, "Oh man, before Washington got in, they wouldn't even fix our streets." And then the reporter said, "If he was alive today, would you vote for him?" And the guy said, "No." So I don't trust. Hate is hate, and people rarely change. What I like to see. So when I was in the state house in '94 and '95, no, that wouldn't be right. '95 and '96, the Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. For 2 years, they just beat up on the city of Chicago and Cook County. And I bet if Democrats passed 2% of their bills those 2 years, I'd be shocked. What that taught me was when you've got nothing to do, spend that time preparing for when you're back. What the Democrats should be doing right now is writing legislation and talking about what they plan to introduce when they get the opportunity. This is war. You've got to fight. They can't sit back and say, "Oh, look at them, they're going to self-destruct." No, you've got, just as you say, you have to have something that you have that says this is how we're going to change things. And then you have to throw it out there and force them to either say yes or no. They're going to say no. But you want the world to see.
No, I absolutely think that should be the hammer that they should use. They should not use this hammer of having investigation after investigation. Now, they're going to have some investigation. There's no question about that. But to have investigation after investigation after investigation, impeachment after impeachment after impeachment, that's not going anywhere, because the only thing that you could do is impeach them. So you have it on record they've been charged with a crime, in effect. But in order to convict them, you need 2/3 of the Senate to convict and remove. That is going to exacerbate, in my view, it is going to turn a lot of Americans off with the Democrats. And I would hope that the Democrats would use their hammer in creating and putting forth policies that they can go to Republican districts and say, this is what we have passed. This is what would benefit your communities. But it can't pass because your representatives won't support it or are voting against it.
I'm halfway with you. No, they have to impeach. There are people who have done crimes. They need to be impeached. Even if you can't get it through the Senate, I don't care. Let them know that this has not gone without someone noticing. And this has been an act against the nation itself.
Well, I agree with that there has to be accountability. But what I'm saying is that the Democrats need to be very careful not to go from one extreme, that where we're at now, to another extreme that people say, well, we don't see any difference. They're doing the same thing that that the Republicans were doing, and that's not what that's not helping.
I'm going to push back on you, Mark, and you know why? Because one of the reasons we're in this stupid position we're in is because the Democrats have been acting like pansies. They have not been tough. They've been sitting back and hope the world gets blue. No, you have to fight. Trump came in because a lot of people were like, this guy is tough and going to do something, and he's going to do what he says. The Democrats did not act that way. They acted like, well, the world needs to be great and we're going to make it great. No, you have to do something. People want to see action.
No, I agree that
they want to see here today.
But I agree with you that people want to see action. They want to see action, but they don't want to see the exact same action as what they're seeing now. They want to see some action that has some substance with it.
Substance. I agree.
what we have now is style. There's no substance, right? This is just a style of some type of tough man bravado, but there's no substance there. So yes, I agree with you. The Democrats need to show some strength, but they need to show strength with some teeth or something that people can that people can buy into. It just cannot be, I've got the gavel and I'm sending this person, up the river. Listen, when Nixon left office, 42 members of his administration went to prison.
He should have went with him. I've been thinking about this, Mark. I'm glad you brought this up. I've been thinking about this. I like Gerald Ford because I think he was a good guy, even though he was a Republican in all business and all that business stuff is never really helps us. But and he was the only person who served as vice president and as president that was never elected. Yeah, right. That was pretty. Yeah, but what I thought is that he set a precedent that the president can get away with anything, and I didn't like that.
Without question. Now, he came nearing the end of his life. He came kind of close, and I had been trying to find that clip, but he came close to actually acknowledging that he regretted that decision. And I've been trying to find that clip that where he actually was doing an interview, and I forget who it was, but in that clip, he acknowledged that Nixon should have been held accountable for, covering up a crime. And if he were alive today, it set the stage for what we are seeing.
Yes, the president, maybe you can call him the first citizen, but he's still a citizen. And in that, he has to obey the same rules the rest of us do. At least in theory.
In theory. It's pretty astonishing. It's pretty astonishing to me that I still wake up every day. And I'm glad I wake up every day astonished, because I don't want to adjust to this abnormality as a norm. I don't want to adjust to it. I am going to stay and make sure that I never accept this as that this is okay. Now, I have problems with when I see somebody who is brilliant and who is socially astute and politically as astute as Cornel West, who would have done the most unconscionable thing that he did in this last election. Because Cornel West, and I know that people are not paying a lot of attention to it, but Cornel West, like the Green Party did when Hillary was running. Gore. I'm sorry, Gore. When Gore was running, they actually spoiled the election and gave the election to Bush. Or was that Ralph Nader? Ralph Nader.
That was Ralph Nader's run. Yes.
Okay, Ralph Nader was the spoiler then, and then we had the Green Party during the Hillary Clinton election, and Cornel West was here in this election with the Trump and the Biden. Now, even though he was not on the ballot, he was on the ballot because he spent all that time lambasting the Democratic Party, trying to put himself out there as somebody who is holding both sides accountable. And to me, was a big ego trip. What I believe that he should have done is he should have gone to the Democratic Party. He should have gone to the Biden-Harris campaign and said, look, I've got some issues. And I need for those issues to be addressed. Now, we address these issues. I'll get on the campaign trail, tell people that this is the way that we are going to go because the campaign is going to address this, this, and this. What he did was ego tripped, but it was a dangerous ego trip because I believe that no, he would not have gotten anywhere close to being a competitor. But what I believe he did was that he dissuaded a number of people from actually voting, and he encouraged a number of people to vote another way. And so you don't have to get a bunch of votes in order to be a spoiler. And I believe that in this election, somebody as astute as he is, he did one of the most unconscionable, irresponsible things that I would never have imagined that Cornel West would do. And I have a hard time swallowing anything that he says now.
No, I totally understand. If this was who was that who ran? Clinton against Mitt Romney, and Mitt Romney won, I get to live through those 4 years. but this is not Mitt Romney. This person, I always say, he is exactly who he said he was. He said, "I'm a wolf and I will eat you." And people said, "Okay, that sounds good." And they voted for him. And now he's eating us up. And we are suffering for it and wondering, how does this first year feel like it was 4 years already? I agree. You have to look at the big picture.
Yeah. Well, piggybacking on what you're saying, he's saying he told us who he was and told us who he is, and showing that. He also told us, I can stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and they would still elect me. I would still get elected. Yeah. Well, guess what? Guess what? It's happening. He's not holding the gun, but it's happening.
Right. So, his people are doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. The Fifth Avenue is Renee Good. The Fifth Avenue is now Alex Preddy. The Fifth Avenue is, I forget the black young man who was shot and killed by ICE. His name escapes me, but that's the Fifth Avenue. He's literally doing it. Or going back to his first term when he asked his secretary or his joint chiefs, could he just shoot people in the legs?
Right.
If they're protesting. So we're seeing that happen now. And he wanted to put alligators or crocodiles at the border so that if people were crossing the border,
there's a moat.
So
Mark, many moons ago, and this is probably 25, maybe 30 years ago, Donald Trump, he used to be on David Letterman's show until David Letterman one day just had enough of him and said some stuff. But one thing Donald Trump said was he knew people who were richer than he was, but he could pick up the phone, call any restaurant in New York, and they would find a table for him, not because of all the money, but because of how famous he is. And he has used that fame without any substance to it to get into this office and run it like he has run his businesses, which we know have been run into the ground. Or if you listen to the contractors, he doesn't pay them. This is I have been very vocal on the internet against him, not because for me, because I'm 63 and I feel like I'm in the last lap, but my children are 21, 22, and 25, and they're really just about to start their true adulthood. And I don't want them to think that this is the normal way of life and that you can just sit back and hope things get better, because history has shown us that when you do sit back, things don't get better, they get worse. It can be slow or it can be fast, but it will not get better without you, the public, actually doing something.
You know, I think that what we see happening now, or what we are living through, what we're living through now, you can say there are people out there that would like to, try to dismiss this as by saying, well, that we didn't, um, you know, we didn't elect Donald Trump as our president, and that this is something that white folks have to correct, and in some degree that is true. But he is the president, and he's our problem. He is our problem.
Yes.
And we have to understand that this man has ruptured 80 years of incremental progress through those 80 years that brought us to a place to where we can say we've made some progress. For Black folks, the past 60 years, we've made some progress through the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, which has certainly been attacked. Here, you now have affirmative action, all of those ills, and here now in Pennsylvania, where the Trump administration is sending their goons around to stripping anything that had to do with the history of this country as it relates to slavery, that they are removing any signs of that from state property, and that there are Black folks who somehow think that this man actually cares about Black folks. They believe him when he says things like, well, I'm the least racist person that I know.
Maybe that speaks to the group he's hanging out with, though.
It may be maybe of the group that he hangs out with, that there's some that could be worse than that, but certainly whether that be the case or not, you cannot ignore that the things that he is attacking impact Black people. I don't see him removing any history that positively impacts white people. I'm assuming that he's going to try to find a way to go down to Alabama and remove the museum of the lynchings down in Alabama.
Well, Mark, you do know he is pushing for. I'm certain this is part of Project 2025. It's pushing for return to states' rights. So the feds won't have to do this kind of stuff. The states will take care of it for him.
Yes. Well, of course, he's been pushing for states' rights. He doesn't even understand what that means, but he certainly has been pushing for it, because that's what Russell Vought, who is the lead author of Project 2025, and also the person who is in charge of the Office of Management and Budget. Mm-hmm. He was there in his first term, and he's there in his second term. So the people who are really pushing the levers of this administration is Russell Vought and Stephen Miller. These are the two people who are literally giving directives and orders to tell Trump that this is the way to go. You have the rights and you have the powers to do this. Now, Donald Trump, who has probably never read a comic book in his life, because he doesn't read his briefings, because he just doesn't read. So whatever they tell him, that he is doing and is in his ear. That's coming directly from those two people, Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt, who to me are two extraordinarily evil people. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the interview that Russell Vogt did with two reporters that had disguised themselves, purported themselves to be wealthy Republican donors. And they did this interview with Russell Vogt, who basically gave them the layout of what Project 2025 was. I'm going to just give you one of the clips where they're talking about creating this shadow offices in the second term.
We are trying to create a shadow Office of Management and Budget, a shadow National Security Council, and a shadow Office of Legal Counsel. Yeah. These are the main organs in government that you need outside to create the battle plan.
And you're not going to publish those?
No.
They go straight to...
Yeah, they're very, very close hold.
This does not surprise me. This does not surprise me. I think evil is a pretty good word for what's going on right now.
Right. All right, we're gonna switch gears here a little bit. The other thing is wrongful convictions in Illinois. My organization.
I want to say I read that 53% of the exonerations are to black men.
Yes.
Which is amazing. That's an amazing number.
It's an amazing 574 of wrongful convictions here directly in Chicago and Cook County. So that means that the Chicago Police Department and the Cook County State's Attorney are two. I don't know. I don't want to say failed, but certainly damaged and untrusted agencies. Now we have a Cook County State's Attorney in Eileen O'Neill Burke, who decided her second decision, executive decision when she got elected, was that she would empower police to give police the authority to charge people with felony gun charges as a pilot program in the 7th district, which is Englewood, and in the 5th district, which is Roseland. And now she has expanded it citywide, which means nothing. It just means that it's expanded citywide, but go to the black neighborhoods and do this. And so now I've had conversations with public defenders that more than 30% of those cases, of the cases that have now been brought in the last year, have been tossed out by the court, meaning that the people should never have been detained. They should never have been charged. But now the problem is that they now have to go spend money and probably a year trying to get their records expunged of an arrest and a charge that they should never have had in the first place. There's a young man by the name of Kevin Jackson, who my political action committee, 10 by 10 to Win, is supporting and watching his case. He is someone who was charged of a murder in 2001 and served almost 24 years in prison, almost died in prison from some type of food poisoning where they would not get him the medical attention that he needed. He petitioned the court, and the court assigned him the attorneys that he currently has working with him now on the medical case. Well, that case, he went before the appellate court, and for the first time in the history of Illinois, the appellate court, all three of the justices ordered him released immediately before they even issued their authored written opinion. It's never happened before, because they believed that the case was that egregious. I've got some of the language from that opinion, because I've read the opinion and I've been working, talking with his attorneys. That they talked about, at best, the razor thin so-called evidence was that of 4 witnesses that were bullied and that were threatened by the detectives to sign a statement saying that he was the shooter. One of the victims, because there was one victim that died and one victim that survived. The victim that survived testified that that Kevin Jackson looked nothing like the person who shot him.
Wow.
He had to go through 16 judges, including the Supreme Court, that denied him initially. And he was ultimately released. Now, in order for someone to be convicted of a crime, the state has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed that offense in order for a person to be convicted, right?
That's correct.
Well, this case was such an egregious case that the evidence that they had were these 4 witnesses that they forced to sign on to this statement identifying him. They had no idea what he looked like. And it happened in May of 2001. They picked him up 2000, and they picked him up in June, only because he was the co-owner of a vehicle that happened to be at the gas station the night of that the murder took place. The person or the shooter had nothing to do with their vehicle. The state knows who the actual shooter is and is refusing to go after the actual shooter. And one of the detectives is married to one of the assistant state's attorneys.
That does not surprise me at all.
No. I'm just just showing you how egregious this is. In 2000, this happened. 2001, that this happened. So it's not that long ago.
No.
So that's the John Burge of the 80s on steroids, still alive within the Chicago Police Department. And so now the Chicago Police Department, they now have the authority to bring charges, to arrest, detain, arrest, and charge people with felony gun possessions without there being any type of oversight of the state's attorney.
Sounds like a terrible idea. I don't think this is what we already know. The old way they were doing it wasn't working well. I don't know why they think that giving the police officer more power out on the street is going to make things any better. If that is what they're trying to do. I've heard many stories where the feeling among the justice group, the state's attorney and the police, is we need to get this person convicted. Not always that they know that they're guilty, but man, this is a bad person. They need to be off the street. Let's do something. It's a terrible stain on America, because we're generally talking about black folks. My friend was a sergeant in 22, which is the heart of Beverly and Morgan Park. Takes in some 34 and 21. Well, 34 is gone now. And he said he'd be driving. He was a sergeant. He'd be driving along, and sometimes he'd find some black kids outside of a car, and he'd pull over and ask the what's going on, and the patrol officers didn't have a real answer. Oh, well, it looked a little strange, so we pulled him over. And he'd be like, let him go. Mm-hmm. But if he wasn't there as a black man looking out for black kids, who knows what happens. That's why there needs to be more of us in more rooms. That's what I've always said. We need to be in the spaces. One of the problems we always had with the justice system is that it was controlled by the Irish, who had no true love for us, and they were all mingled. I mean, the judge and the state's attorney and the patrolman, they all had something in common, and sometimes were related, like you were saying, and that is not good for anyone who isn't part of that group.
Well, speaking about when you said that we need to be in a room, and I think I will add that those of us with character, conscience, and courage need to be in the room, because we have black folks today who are supposed to be in charge. The top brass of the Chicago Police Department, for the most part, including the superintendent of police, much of the top brass are black folks of the police department. Much of the top brass of the fire department are black. What is happening that we have so many people who look like us are in these spaces, that we still have these kinds of abuses that are going on, that retired police officers, right? They have these come to Jesus moment where they, want to tell about, all the things that are going on in the police department, but you would say nothing when you're there because you were doing what? Protecting your check, protecting your pension, at the sacrifice of other people's lives. Pretty disturbing to me. So I say that, we need to have us in the room, but we need to have us in the room who's got the integrity and the character and the courage to stand up for what is right.
I totally agree with you. Yes. I don't want to cry about me, but when I was at the county, my whole thought was, how do I knew the justice system was going to stay no matter what, but how do we keep the hospital system afloat, because it affects so many people who really had nowhere else to go. And when I left the county, I was a pariah. I was like public enemy number one. And I don't mind saying it was the progressives were out to get me at that time.
Because of a pen.
Over the pen. Well, I think it was bigger than that. It was more politics too. Pat Quinn was showing me no love. People were like, I can't do anything with you because Pret Winkle might stop giving me business. And it was a tough time for me, only because my children were at that age where they were expensive as heck. It was that education time. But that's one reason I think black people don't always step out, is because they don't see a system to help them when times get tough. Like that's one thing I applaud my dad for. One of the many things is when black people got just tossed out, he tried to find something for them where they could work, have a purpose, feed their family, all that kind of stuff.
One of the most consequential political figures in the history of the city of the county of Chicago. and the city.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. He loved being able to help people who wanted to do something. Matter of fact, I always said I didn't think he had any real hobbies besides like reading and trying to figure out how can he get something for somebody else. When I grew up, my thought was I don't want to be I don't want his job because he got no time. he was 100% in it, and we just don't have enough people who are 100% and figure out how do I stay in this, help other people, and strengthen the bigger group that I come from, because without that you just get stepped on, and I think we're getting stepped on a lot right now.
Well, we're getting stepped on a lot because I think in part, in a large part, you know, and my belief is that there are not enough of Black folks within the city of Chicago and the county of Cook, which is still the largest single voting population in any other ethnic group. More than 1 million, almost 1.5 million people between the city of Chicago and the county of Cook that decides every major election. Because you can't win if you don't get the plurality of the Black vote. It's just, you know, that's the math. But we, as a base of people, we have not grasped the strength of that equity, and so you don't have people who are in public office that can stand on, speaking politically, that can stand on what is right for fear of retribution, because there are not enough people, voters, that is supportive of any one people, or to say to somebody else, look, if you bother them, we'll bother you at the ballot box. To have a big enough threat like what
I agree with that. But I've been talking to the elected officials around me, and I say, you know, one of the problems that I see from you guys is you don't fight out in public, but you don't help each other either. You don't show a public face of I am in this person's corner. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm in this person's corner. I am going to help them with what they're trying. They're going to help me. And so when, like, the great thing about the 8th Ward, besides having the county board president, was the state senator came out of there, the state rep came out of there, the alderman came out of there. And that made us powerful in itself, because all these people were going to push in the same direction.
Well, I think it's very true. I think it's very true that you have, look, I like to go through the numbers. We have almost 200 Black folks in elected office since 1983. I got to Chicago in 1987. 1983 to now, we have elected now 20 people at the city level, 20 Black aldermen, a Black mayor, a Black Cook County board president, 6 Black Cook County commissioners. I forget how many Black commissioners are on the water reclamation. We have a treasurer, a Black treasurer. We have 22 state representatives that are Black, 10 state senators, 4 United States congresspeople, a Black lieutenant governor, and 17 Black mayors out in the South suburbs.
A Black attorney general.
And a Black attorney general. So we have almost 200 around the state of elected Black people. All happened in the last 40 years. But yet, in terms of a community, we don't see that same level of rise with the people. So we've elected all these people to these offices, but that hasn't translated into bringing more equity between education and economics and all of those things in between. Now, why is that? Is that because there's some threat, or is that because somebody else owns them? We elect them, but somebody else owns them. What is it?
I would say part of it is, well, first I would say the your base of voters tend to look at politics like it's a spectator sport. If they do vote, they figure that's it. Now I'm going to go home and watch and see what happens, and that does not help their cause in any way. But there is some truth to the Black elected officials themselves get a lot of resources from places outside of their home. And, and some of that has to do with economics. We are not welcome in very many jobs that pay great salaries and such. So people feel very tight with their money, but like I said, they also don't participate. So like when Madigan was the speaker, a lot of people depended on him to help them do just about everything. They didn't have any of their own machinery. Help them get some money, help them get some people out in the street, whatever it was, they depended on him. And that just makes you weak. And so we're kind of weak as a group.
Yeah, so there's enough blame to go around. There's enough blame to go around from the constituents' side, as well as the people who are there. So it really boils down to there being an actual connection between the people that we have elected and between the constituents. I fundamentally believe that some way, somehow, and I've kind of come to this, that I am going to, and we are going to have to raise some money to do a campaign to literally build and strengthen a Black independent voting bloc, so that the Black community can realize the strength that it actually has, because we exercise it every election, right? The governor can't win if he doesn't get a plurality of the Black votes in Chicago and Cook County. He cannot win, right? The mayor cannot win if he does not get the plurality of the Black vote in the city of Chicago. The Cook County Board President cannot become the Cook County Board President without getting the plurality of the Black vote in Cook County.
Yes.
Mathematically, it cannot happen. So anybody who is running for a citywide, countywide, or statewide office has to get the plurality of the Black vote in order to be successful. We have got to be able to communicate that to us, that we have a power that we need to take control of. We need to take control of. Now, just as much of a threat, not in a harmful way, as the threat is from the Republican base to the Republicans that are scared out of their pants to do their job at the federal level. I mean, we hear time and time again how Republicans in private talk about how awful Donald Trump is. And we've just recently saw Josh Hawley and 4 other Republicans were going to put a restraint on the president and this new war powers bill. What happens? The day that the bill is supposed to go to vote, 2 of them flip, and the bill gets rejected. Why? Because they got a call. And that call was, if you support this, you're going to have a problem getting reelected. That is the kind of strength that we actually have available to us if we organize it here in Chicago and Cook County. Now we're in a unique position as Black people in the region that we are, because the way that we are situated here in Chicago and Cook County is not typical of the way Black folks are situated around the country. Even in places like Philadelphia or, places like Detroit, certainly where I come from in Florida, we are in a very, very non-typical position that we could be a model for what real organized Black power actually looks like. And I think that the only way that that's going to happen is that we're going to have to raise money to have a targeted campaign as such.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I totally agree. Many moons ago, one thing I realized when I was an alderman is that Mayor Daley had taken some of the power out of the Black aldermen because the Black businessmen stopped coming to the Black aldermen about trying to do things in the city, and they went straight to the mayor, and the mayor would take their call. So all of a sudden, the Black businessmen saw the Black aldermen as powerless and treated them accordingly. I don't think anything's changed.
No, I don't think anything has changed, because that's been the system, and it's not going to change unless we change. So we're the ones that are going to have to change in order to change that system. Listen, I am a Democrat. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the democratic values. That does not mean that I am a go along to get along Democrat. I believe in holding Democrats accountable. And I believe in supporting Democrats that are doing and working in the best interest of the constituency. Now, you have these people who are so frustrated that they believe, the 5 or 6 of them that believe that, we're going to flip Chicago red, which I think is just, somewhat of, a joke. Now, even though there was a concerted effort by the Republicans in the last mayoral election to support Paul Wallace, they put $20 million into his campaign.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah. So, and these were all Republicans: Betsy DeVos and Jennifer Pritzker, Sam Zales, who was now dead, and Ken Griffin. So these were all Republicans that propped him up. And obviously, if they can penetrate Chicago and Cook County, then there goes Illinois, becomes a red state. So, because much of Illinois is a farm state anyway. But they tried. So, but I liken it to I try to kind of paint this picture to say to people, look, it's okay to be upset. There are some Democrats that are a little broken, but they're a part of a car, right? They're a part of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. So if the vehicle is running a little rough, you take the vehicle to the shop, replace the broken parts with some newer parts, and the whole car runs much better. Yes. The same thing with the Democratic Party. We have to deal with those ones that are not working in the best interest of the values that we believe, and either we get them straightened out or we have to replace them. But you don't blow up the entire system because of a few pistons that are not working well. you change the pistons so that the whole vehicle moves better. So I'm a proud Democrat. And I am a Democrat because of those values that are democratic values that we support. Taking care of people who can't take care of themselves, and helping people to get a great education and build a strong public education system, making sure that poor people get the help that they need, and that, wealthy people should be paying their fair share in order for us to have a society that works for everybody. Those are values that Republicans don't support or believe in.
No.
So, and I'm not sure what these people today call themselves, what values they actually have, other than capitulating and being a sycophant, right? So,
right.
So that's where I believe that we have to be. Now, I'm 65, you're 61. And
we've got an older on you. I turned 63 on the 14th.
So, okay, all right. On the 14th of January or February? Oh, okay.
It was January. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, things are falling off me, so I know it's right.
Yeah. So, so these are the kinds of things that I think we have to educate. Now, I'm going to be doing some things coming up because this election is extraordinarily important. Now, there are some Black people that are Democrats here that are not good for our community. One in particular, his name is Larry Rogers Jr. And he has flown under the radar for a very long time. I'm going to be doing some educational podcasts, helping people to understand just who it is that raises your property taxes. Because most people think that it's the assessor who causes your property taxes to skyrocket. And I will
not be voting for Fritz KG. I don't care what he says.
Okay, well, I support Fritz Kagi.
That's a separate thing, but
yeah, I support Fritz Kagi because I support the work that he's doing, and I'm going to educate people. I'm going to educate people on with some other trusted voices to understand just who it is now that causes your property taxes to increase, because there are 11 different agencies that you contribute to as a part of your property taxes. Now, the largest one is the Chicago Board of Education. About 60% of your tax bill goes to the education department. Yes. Now, I'm a big supporter of public education. We have to find another way to support public education. But it should not always be on the backs of mostly retired people, right? Who have worked for 30 years, paid for their homes, and now are having to pay, every time they need some money, they go to the piggy bank of, homeowners and saying, well, we need a few more dollars because our levy has increased. Understand it, but why? Is it that the same group of people, you have to go to the same, piggy, who don't have as much? But here we have people of wealth that you had 29 aldermen, many of them from the south and west sides of Chicago that represent communities that are disinvested in or certainly underinvested in, voted to protect wealthy people from contributing a little bit more of their wealth, 0.02% of their profits, in order for us to make sure that we can balance the budget. That doesn't
seems a little screwy, didn't it?
It seems a little bit screwy. So yeah. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be having some short informational podcasts that help people to understand just who it is that's causing for your property taxes to increase. Now, $700 of your property taxes this year, if you live in the city of Chicago, came as a result of George Cardenas and Larry Rogers Jr. giving $500 million of a property tax shift on to homeowners in the city of Chicago, where they have allowed for commercial property owners downtown to falsely under assess or assess valuate their properties so that they can enjoy larger profits from their revenue and shift the tax burden off onto homeowners, because the tax levy, as you know, in the Chicago part of it is $9 billion. And wherever that tax cut comes from, somebody has to make it up. Larry Rogers Jr. got over $1 million in campaign contributions from tax appeals attorneys that he hears tax appeals cases from. George Cardenas, Larry Rogers Jr. are the linchpins at the Board of Review that are signing off on these, and they have shifted more than $4.5 billion in downtown property taxes onto homeowners in the city of Chicago in the past 4 years. That's unconscionable. That's unconscionable. So therein lies is one example of a black Democrat that does not work in the interest of black people in the city of Chicago. And that sort of thing we need to understand. It's not personal. It's not a personal thing. You know, at one time I was a supporter of Larry Rogers Jr. because I thought, Larry Rogers Jr. came in as a reformer, but he came in as campaigned as a reformer and came in and just fell in line with the establishment of the people who brought him in.
I see that office is kind of technical. I've never really gotten into the bones of it. I'd run for it if I had a lot of money, though.
You mean the Board of Review? You mean the Board of Review?
Uh-huh.
The Board of Review is not that technical. It does one job. There's one job, and that is lowering people's taxes. But the problem is there is an inequity on how they do it. Homeowners got a 1% reevaluation, while on average, commercial property owners downtown got 17%. So that is a inequitable destabilization of the market that for the longest, the Board of Review, which is one of those like innocuous offices that nobody really paid attention to until the last 6 years or so.
So what about the third person? I mean, I know they're out in the suburbs. We don't have, but
Samantha Steele.
What's their role in this?
Well, first of all, she's one vote, so she has like very little power. She can, have a dissenting argument, but she really has no power because George Cardenas and Larry Rogers Jr. vote together. Now, we can change this coming election. We have the opportunity to change that because George Cardenas is up for re-election. Larry Rogers Jr. is not up for re-election this time. It's George Cardenas. He's up for re-election. So we have the opportunity to change that dynamic. And there's a person who's running against him. I'm trying to get her to come on to talk with her to see where her mindset is in terms of what is going on. I'm told, I don't know, that, she understands the inequities that's going on. She's from the Hispanic community. George Cardenas, as you know, is a former alderman. And I understand he even had some problems getting on the ballot this time. So, but yeah, Samantha Steele is the third person, but she doesn't have any weight because it's only 3 offices, so you need two.
Two for, yeah, right.
Right. That's your majority. So now let me, I want to get back to this this wrongful conviction case that I was telling you about.
Yes.
Kevin Jackson. So I was explaining that in order for you to be convicted of a crime, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
Yes.
You get exonerated of a crime that you did not commit. You appeal to the appellate court, you appeal to the Supreme Court, they reverse your decision. In his case, they exonerated him of the charges. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of read to you something that what the appellate court said about I had it ready for me. Okay.
I understand. I have that effect on people sometimes.
Yeah, I want to find this. I want to find the statement that Judge Mikva wrote, because it was a pretty scathing opinion that she gave to the trial court judge. All right, I can't seem to find my place here, but let me just, I'll find it while I'm talking, but let me just finish my point there. So in order to be convicted of a crime, you have to, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. In Kevin Jackson's case, the appellate court justices said that this case was one of the most egregious cases that they had ever heard, and they ordered him released before they had even issued their written decision. The other day, we showed up to his hearing, for his first hearing, to get his certificate of innocence. Now, the state's attorney is not going to retry him. They're not going to retry him. But the state's attorney has hired an outside private attorney, private firm, to try and block his certificate of innocence, right? Even though he has been exonerated of these charges. The special prosecutors, which are private attorneys, we're probably paying some $2,500 an hour for, I wouldn't doubt, as taxpayers, said in that hearing that it is now the litigant, which is Kevin Jackson, it is now his duty. He has the duty to prove that he is innocent.
What? That's crazy.
Absolutely. But that's in the law. It's in the law. So that means that we have to go to the legislature to say this needs to be changed. So
you're right.
I've been exonerated of these charges, but I now have to prove. Now, you don't have the same measure. It's only by a preponderance of the evidence. So you just have to tip the scale, which has more than that has been proved, that they have met their burden. But why should he have to meet the burden at all when the courts and the justices have said that this person did not commit this crime? This person should never have been brought to trial had the evidence that was made available at the time been presented to the court or presented to the defense. he never would have been convicted of these crimes. That was in the appellate court justice's opinion, in their decision. So now I'm a lawyer, never practiced, criminal law or law at all, but I sat through this, and when I heard that, my antennas just went, wait a minute. You mean that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed this event in order for them to be convicted? But on appeal, when the appellate court says we are reversing this decision and exonerating this person, and then the state says we're not going to retry them, he then has to prove that he's innocent. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. But it is a part of the law. It is a part of the law. So now, why is it there? It's there to protect money. That's why it's there. It is there to hope that the clock runs out for these victims now of wrongful convictions, that the clock would run out, that they would either run out of energy or their lawyers would run out of time and resources and would not want to see this thing all the way through, because once they receive their certificate of innocence, that means now the state has to pay them, which is the equivalent of $300,000 and some odd $1,000 that the state has to pay them. Then it also enhances, for every year that he was in prison, that settlement could be somewhere between $4 and $6 million for every year that he was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it's about. But no person, regardless of money, no person should have to prove that they're innocent. They already met that burden when they brought their case to appeal, argued before an appellate court or argued before a Supreme Court justice, and they ruled in favor of the litigant. You proved your innocence. You now have to come back to the state and prove your innocence again in order for you to receive your certificate of innocence.
Yeah, I'm with you. It sounds like they're trying to hold the purse strings. I don't want to let go of any money, and they figured out a way to do it. But I also agree with you that some legislator should pick this up and reverse this.
Well, we are certainly going to be reaching out to LG Sims is my neighbor, so I am going to have a conversation with him to see if he would be willing to do, because he actually just passed another bill that had to do with automatic, some type of automatic expungement on certain cases. So I'm going to be talking with him about that and seeing if he would take the lead on sponsoring this. I would think that this should be. I could see the Republicans opposing it, right? Just because.
Yeah, well, isn't that natural?
Right. I can see them opposing it.
Yeah, well, in the House, there's only like 15 of them, so.
Right. The same way that they oppose the Safety Act. So I'm going to have a conversation with somebody. I'll have a conversation with LG, and if he's not, on board with it, we'll find somebody, because this is a travesty that a person has to go and prove their innocence twice. You have to go prove your innocence twice, and there is an avenue for the state who is not going to retry you, but to block your certificate of innocence.
Yeah, that just does not seem fair in any fashion.
Right. Well, you're talking about that's a hinge of sharecropping and a hinge of slavery tied to that. in my view. These are the kinds of these are the kind of things that, again, that democratic values would be supporting. Republicans would not support this sort of thing. So
No,
for all you folks who think that, flipping red and all of that sort of stuff, this kind of inequity, you would not get support from Republicans or whatever they like to call themselves, conservatives, whatever they like to call themselves. Chicago, we have paid out, we are now approaching $2 billion in police misconduct and wrongful convictions in the state of Illinois. More than any other state, more than any other municipality that we have paid out. Pretty incredible.
Well, that's incredible. But I don't know. I always thought that I know a lot of police officers, but they tend to be blue, and black people are actually. I had a couple of friends who worked at the police academy, and one of them said, it's not surprising, even in the training. The training is that people of color are a problem. So when these people get out in the street, the first thing they think is you're a problem, just because of who you are. They don't know anything about you, but they know that you are dark.
Yeah. Here's what I wanted to read. I found it. This is what one of the justices said. She said, the reinvestigation team concluded that Mr. Jackson's convictions lacked integrity because, number one, there was an unacceptable high likelihood that the prior witnesses' statements formed the sole evidentiary basis for Mr. Jackson's convictions were obtained by pressure, coercion, and overreaching by the police. Their polygraph expert had concluded that the police falsely told two witnesses that they had failed polygraph examinations.
Yeah, it seems like on the face they would be like, okay, go home. This is over.
Well,
the system is not designed for us.
Well, this was contrived by police, but we're supposed to trust the police. I was in a town hall meeting back in the spring. It was surprising to me. Now, when Eileen Burke made this decision to give police these powers, it was announced in this little small innocuous paper back in January or December or something like that. Whenever she took office, and we have this newly elected. What do they call them? Councils or police councils? I forget what they.
They have some kind of board. Yeah, I don't remember what they call it.
So they didn't know about this until the spring, which was around April. So Joseph Williams, who is on the district council for the 7th district, called a town hall. So there was a town hall meeting over at Ogden Park. So we went to that meeting. The police showed up, the commander showed up, and Eileen Burke's, part of her staff showed up. Eileen Burke will not come to any of these events. And so one of her liaisons got up and told us about 46 cases that had already gone before the court. And what she said was 30 of the cases had been upheld by the court. Now, what lawyers do is lawyers tell you about what they want you to hear, not about anything else. So she went through her whole diatribe. I was the last person to speak. So when I got up to speak, and they kept saying, the police department kept saying, look, trust us. we're going to make sure that anybody that gets arrested, that they're processed properly. But they kept using the word trust.
Yeah.
So I got up and I said, with all due respect, I support the police and believe that we need to have a good, strong, working police department. I said, unfortunately, you have the dubious record of having the highest number of wrongful convictions in the country. So as much as we'd like to trust you, we can't trust you. You've got a lot of work to do there. So, and then I turned to the state's attorney's office and I said to the crowd, to the people, there was about 50 or 60 people in this meeting. And I said, look, she said the cases that were upheld, but she never said anything about the remaining cases. So she said that there were
that number sounds important. What is that?
Right. She said there were 46 cases, 30 of them were upheld. She never said anything about the 16 cases. So that means that 16 cases were not upheld. So that means that about 35% of the cases that they brought were thrown out. 35%. I said, now, when I was in school, if you got a 65%, you got like a D. Or a D plus or a C minus. You barely, right? So 35% of the cases. So that means that 16 people who got picked up, detained, charged, should never have been detained. She never said a word about that. So I just want to make you all understand that this is not some successful pilot program. This is a failure on its face. So the reason,
what can you live with?
Yeah, yeah, but you know what the reason was? You know what their reason was for actually doing this?
What's that?
Supposedly, Eileen Burke had a conversation with Larry Sneller, and she asked him, "What was your greatest problem?" And supposedly he said to her, my police officers being saddled down with paperwork while they could be on the streets. This was her answer to that. So this was because of a personnel problem. I said, so you have a personnel problem that you need to address. And because you have a personnel problem that you need to address, you're going to infringe on the constitutional protections of citizens because you have a personnel problem? I said it should not be easy for police or for the state. It should not be easy for you to railroad people. You should have to do your job. You should have to go through layers to make sure that if you are charging somebody of an offense, that there is a high probability based on evidence and facts that the person that you allege that to this offense committed that act. You can't get there when you decide to remove a layer of that process.
Now, I totally agree with you. There's a reason why there are layers. The second layer is supposed to take what the police officer has written down. My friend used to always say that police officers are glorified clerks, but it makes sense. You want them to put pen to paper to say what happened, because you don't want them coming back, 30 days later and saying, well, this is what happened. You're not going to remember that kind of stuff. So, and you want someone who is supposed to be objective to look at that and make a decision if this is what needs to be done, instead of having the person who was in the heat of the moment make that decision.
Or somebody who decides that, I want to make this stick. So I'm going to put the evidence that I want to put here to make this stick, like what happened to Kevin Jackson.
Yes.
Except for that was based on falsehoods that sent a man to prison for 24 years, 23 years, 8 months, for almost 24 years of his life.
That's unimaginable for me. If they put me in the holding cell, I'd be like, oh God, I need to get out. I cannot imagine having that much of your life just stripped away.
Can you imagine at 19 years of age? At 19 years of age,
yeah,
someone comes and picks you up.
I had a lot of energy and no knowledge, and you're not going to learn a lot while you're in prison. That's for sure.
Well, you know, remarkably, Kevin Jackson obviously survived, and
yes.
my hat's off to the attorney. Now, the attorneys that are representing him, they are not criminal attorneys. They're actually trial contractual attorneys, but the courts appointed them to him on his medical case. And when they represented him on the medical case, the pro bono on his medical case, they looked at his case, his overall case, and saw that this case was such an interesting and unbelievable case that they decided that they were going to represent him even through his appeal. And so Elizabeth Bacon and her partner, Brandon, are representing him to get his certificate of innocence. And one of my committee people told us about him, and we brought him before the committee. They told us his story, and we voted to support it. But now, in supporting it, we now find when we went to court, we now are moving to the political side of it because the law needs to be changed. No person who is exonerated or found to be innocent should have to prove a second time that they're innocent. There should be an automatic, by the court, issuance of a certificate of innocence, and there should be an automatic expungement of their records.
I totally agree.
Thousands and thousands.
There shouldn't be any more hoops to jump through. That's for sure.
Yes. So,
hey, don't you think he's been through enough already?
I could not imagine. Now, he said to me, you know, people talk about the time that we spent in prison and that sort of thing. And yes, that's a lot of time. He said, but people never talk about what you actually have to go through while you're in prison. He almost died because of the food that they eat in there, because, you know, it's not like they're getting, you know, real nourishing meals.
No, they don't treat you well.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Todd, it's been great having you on the program. We're coming.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Mark.
Listen, you know, and I'm always grateful whenever you come on. I saw you on with was that
Perry?
Yeah. When she guest host over the holiday, I saw you on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, I watched you all a little bit there. So I'm not allowed to go on that station anymore. So, but that's okay. That's
Perry
all right.
and I may do a podcast together. I bought some equipment. I plan to do a podcast, even if Perry doesn't want to do it. But I will be doing something in the next couple of weeks, I think.
Oh, sounds good. All right. Well, listen, we'll talk about that. Anything I can do to help you, just let me know.
I appreciate you, Mark.
All right, folks. Todd Stroger, the former Cook County Board president, and was a very good president and got railroaded as far as my concern with the current administration there. All right, Todd, we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me for this Monday night edition of The People Show. We'll see you next Monday. for at the same time, the same place. For those of you, make sure that we see you Thursday night for 10 by 10 to win for our weekly meeting Thursday night. If you have not joined us, you can join us by texting 10X10 to the number 855-909-1385. Until next week, this is the Monday night edition of the People Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio.